So after a washout last week in Imola, F1 fans were eager to get back to watching some racing.
But it's the Monaco Grand Prix.
Oh, grow up.
It's the Grand Prix. I never miss the Grand Prix.
Just a shame it's Monaco, where we love the weekend up to the end of qualifying, and then we get to Sunday.
Skip.
Coming into round 6, and the battle for second place in the Constructors was heating up, with Mercedes letting us know all of the parts they needed to upgrade in order to be competitive.
New nose, front wing, rear wing, engine, gearbox, an enhanced energy recovery system and much more.
Along with providing a leak on Twitter of their new front wing design. Meanwhile, over at Ferrari, they brought something specifically designed to help Charles Leclerc. Hey guys, it's Taron and welcome to the On Track channel and to round 6 in Monaco. Now, before we get going, just a quick reminder as always that if you do end up enjoying the video, to give it a thumbs up and subscribe for more content throughout the season, throughout the rest of the year. Now, with that out of the way, let's get into my honest review of Formula 1 and the 2023 Monaco Grand Prix. So of course, the big news was that last week the Emilia-Romagna Grand Prix had to be cancelled. With no F1 action on, we were all left to go watch Formula Marbles. To be fair, probably a closer battle for the win than the real life racing. But in fairness, yeah, not gonna lie, the race would have been a pretty tricky one to justify, given it was looking more like Venice than Imola. We'd have got to Sunday and the commentary would have been going like, so all 20 sailors have made their way to the start line, and it's lights out and away we float. Verstappen leads into turn 1, but after taking the corner a bit too fast, he has in fact capsized. Hang on a second, is that Charles Leclerc's Ferrari? On the hard compound tyres?
We are thinking plan B, let me know your opinion.
In all seriousness though, it was definitely the correct decision made by the people in charge, with thoughts going to those affected in the region, as if you haven't already seen the images, it is a pretty bad situation. I won't lie though, my only surprise with the decision was the fact that F1 actually made the correct one for once, and in a timely manner, although Sky Sports were probably a bit annoyed when they posted their timetable for the weekend online, only for Formula 1 to state the event was cancelled just 2 hours later. Meanwhile, Charles Leclerc was showing us that his ability to stand upright in a football match matched his ability to keep the car on the track. And then over at Aston Martin, and we had the news that they would be partnering with Honda for their engines in 2026. Here's live scenes of Lawrence Stroll as he builds the team from Mercedes parts, Red Bull aerodynamicists, and now Honda engines. Honestly though, Honda are out here deciding if they want to be in Formula 1 on the flip of a coin. Like, heads we're in, tails we're out. It's like the CEO decides if they're going to compete by doing this. And you know what? Over the past 10 years, they've been collecting up engine deals like they're playing Pokemon. McLaren, then AlphaTauri, Red Bull, and now Aston as well. Though if history has taught us anything, it's that Fernando Alonso and Honda isn't necessarily the best combination. And then finally, there was the rumour that Lewis Hamilton could be leaving Mercedes to join Ferrari for $40 million a season.
Hello, Lewis.
Nothing says Ferrari like spending millions on a driver instead of using that money to hire a competent team. Into FP1 and we got our first on-track look at the one-off special McLaren livery, which has been inspired from other McLaren cars which over the years have completed a manufacturer triple crown, winning the Indy 500, along with the 24 Hours of Le Mans, and then of course the Formula 1 Monaco Grand Prix. Though this year a good result for McLaren would just be finishing the race in Monaco without things all going completely wrong. Then over at Mercedes, and it was time to see their big upgrade package brought in for this weekend.
Upgrades, people, upgrades!
With most notably new side pods that move away from their zero pod concept, an idea that in hindsight was really named because of the amount of pace it provided the car. Onto some action though, and for Leclerc in the Ferrari it was a wobble at the swimming pool section. Though in fairness, at least he didn't do his usual trick there.
Gentlemen, a short view back to the past.
Over at Haas, and Nico Hülkenberg did exactly what every F1 game player has done a million times while racing at Monaco, clipping the inside of the chicane and spinning his car into a 180, also puncturing his tyre in the process. Though when it came to clipping barriers, the title for FP1 went to Alex Albon, as he didn't really clip the barriers, but more so ate them up as he exited turn 1. I won't lie, my first reaction was just being amazed that it wasn't Logan Sargent crashing. So remember how I joked about Leclerc's crash at the swimming pool? and general F1 chatter this year would maybe suggest that Carlos Sainz need to be more on Leclerc's level at Ferrari. Well, I guess you can say that kinda happened, as Sainz clipped the wall and headed straight into the barriers on the other side of the track at the swimming pool.
Hey, I've seen this one. This is a classic.
Hey Ferrari, just remember to properly check over the car this time. Although, from the team's perspective, it could have been worse, as just prior to that crash, the pair of drivers almost collided themselves, with Leclerc going slowly, Sainz going quickly, and well, Monaco being impossible to pass even in practice. On to Saturday now, and it seemed the Mercedes pair were doing their very best to pretend Monaco had no barriers, with George Russell first decide to clip the barrier on entry to Rascasse, and then Lewis Hamilton taking it a step further, parking the car in the barriers at Mirabeau, with the car needing to be recovered by the crane. As the Mercedes went flying so high, you could have called it Snoop Dogg, also exposing the highly secretive floor elements to the rest of the world, leaving the Mercedes team fuming at the crane operator.
Oh fuck, I can't believe you've done this.
Over at Alpine, and Esteban Ocon's car decided it wanted some camera time, grounding to a halt in the tunnel and taking a quick power nap before continuing on its way. And finally, over at Haas, it wasn't the best of sessions for Kevin Magnussen, as he went deep at turn 1 but spun around in the runoff to keep going, until he wasn't going anymore, stopping on the run up the hill and bringing his session to an end. Into qualifying, and just minutes in, we already had the first casualty of the high pressure session, with Sergio Perez getting a bit oversteery at turn 1 and finding himself in the barriers and out of qualifying, as in one corner he'd taken all the credit he's earned as a street track master and thrown it away. Fast forward to the end of Q1, and with zeros on the clock, Sainz and Hamilton were still in the drop zone, with the pair improving their times and getting into Q2, thus avoiding the same fate as Checo. Into the second part of qualifying then, and Lando Norris was very quickly learning that you can't drive through barriers, as he broke his front left suspension and then the front wing also, though luckily was just able to sneak into the top 10 shootout, helped out by the fact that despite 6 full seasons in Formula 1, Lance Stroll still sucks at qualifying. I mean, he's currently sucking at the racing part too, but I'll only focus on the qualifying, just to, make him feel a bit better. But the Canadian was knocked out in Q2 as he could only muster 14th place. Into Q3, and after the first runs with Max Verstappen sitting comfortably in first, until none other than Esteban Ocon yeeted his Alpine up into that top spot. But sadly for Esteban, the joy was just short-lived as the top cars took turns to beat his time. First up Leclerc, who stole the top spot and gave Ferrari fans something to cheer about, though let's be real, in their current situation, just a completed session is enough to cheer about. Behind him though, and next to steal pole away, was F1's pet dinosaur Fernandosaurus, with just 22 thousandths separating them on the front row. Until Max Verstappen came along and reminded everyone that he's Max Verstappen.
Inevitable.
As he took what is actually his first pole in Monaco and set himself up nicely for Sunday. So on to Sunday, and after qualifying P3 on Saturday, Leclerc had been relegated to 6th via a 3-place penalty for blocking Norris, because things going wrong for Charles in Monaco is more inevitable than even Max Verstappen at this point. But onto the racing as the Red Bull led away the Monaco Express and held onto the lead, with Hamilton a few spots behind taking a look up the inside of Sainz but thinking better of it, with the Brit deciding to set his opening lap aggression levels to that of a small bunny. Someone not thinking better of anything though was Nico Hülkenberg, as the German decided he'd send it up the inside of pretty much everybody at Mirabeau, which while helping him to gain 4 places on the opening lap, did give him damage along with a 5-second penalty from the stewards. Someone else doing something stupid on lap 1 was unsurprisingly Lance Stroll, as he forgot how wide his car is and ploughed through the non-existent gap between Alex Albon and the barrier, though maybe he was just trying to remove the wing mirrors off his car, given they're not normally any use to him anyway. The race then did settle down for a bit, but amazingly it was only 10 laps before the next bit of action, courtesy of Carlos Sainz, as he attempted an overtake on Esteban Ocon, but only succeeded in removing part of his front wing, as we all know that overtaking at Monaco is virtually impossible, unless you have Logan Sargent in front of you, as he was dive-bombed by Kevin Magnussen in the Haas to lose a place at Mirabeau. But that's only 1 place lost, that's not too bad. He was then overtaken by Stroll and Perez in the space of just 2 corners, before then also being passed by the Haas of Nico Hülkenberg. Pretty sure these guys must be the ones who taught Logan how to defend. Over at Ferrari, and with Carlos Sainz stuck behind Esteban Ocon, they were looking for ways to get past, by calling him into the pit lane, and then immediately telling him to stay out, as they tried to execute the dummy pit stop, but fooled absolutely nobody. On to lap 32, and after deciding that the medium tyres had gone long enough, Mercedes pulled Hamilton into the pits to try undercut Sainz and Ocon ahead, which didn't work as both Ocon and Sainz maintained their places ahead of Lewis. Looking over to Red Bull, and if Saturday went badly enough for Checo, well, Sunday was going even worse, as he first collided with Stroll at the chicane while the Canadian was being lapped by Verstappen, and then just 2 laps later he proceeded to drive into the back of Kevin Magnussen, clearly taking tips from Lewis on this one. With Perez having to pit, that left Lance Stroll behind the Haas car, and with the Canadian not content with just removing the mirrors in this race, he tried for the front wing as well, making contact with the Haas at the final corner after going for a move up the inside. Well, I say going for, but that move showed less commitment than Liam Hemsworth. So now, with just under 30 laps to go, we had the first radio calls which talked of not just rain in the distance, but spots actually on the track, with Lance Stroll and Valtteri Bottas becoming the intermediate tyre guinea pigs because their races had gone as badly as Chelsea's Premier League season. But with that rain, we did have Max Verstappen hitting the wall at Portier but getting away with it, Carlos Sainz sliding off at Mirabeau but also managing to get away with it, and Lance Stroll hitting the walls not once, but twice in 2 corners before retiring into the pits, with teammate Alonso electing to make his first stop of the race, and the team putting him on the dry tyres. It wasn't long before they had the feeling of instant regret and quickly switched him onto the Inters as well. Behind him though, the Ferrari pair were pushing their luck and leaving both cars out on the slicks before finally bringing them in, because why make the right decisions when you can provide everyone with a free comedy show? But at least they did change tyres, unlike Kevin Magnussen, who was trundling around on hard tyres in the rain. Pretty sure if you need some tips, Kevin, you can ask Lando, he's got some experience in that category. Over at the Silver Arrows, and George Russell decided to remind everyone that he was a true Mercedes driver, by colliding with a Red Bull, reversing back onto the track after going off at Mirabeau and straight into the path of Checo, with both cars surviving the collision. As if there's one thing I've learnt from this race, it's that these cars are almost indestructible. Back up to the front though, and with just a few laps to go, Max Verstappen was having to make an overtake of his teammate for the second time in this race. As if last year was maybe Checo's best race ever, well, this was definitely one of his worst, with Verstappen eventually taking the checkered flag from Alonso in behind, and then Esteban Ocon, who's the first non-top 4 podium of the year. May well be the last the way this season's going. But anyway, that is all for now. Thank you very much for watching. If you have enjoyed, do make sure to give the video a thumbs up and hit the subscribe button for more content throughout the year. But until next time, take care.